Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us on this most special of days. My name is Oyedeji Ayanrinde. That's how my ancestors will appreciate me saying it. Or to many of you, Deji Ayanrinde. I'm the master of ceremony today. And we're going to be going through an event with an experience that may be like no other for many of you. By background, I'm an associate professor of psychiatry at Queen's, clinical director for community mental health programs at Providence Care, and I'm the current chair of the Commission on Black Medical Students. But before we take off, it'll be very important that we acknowledge the land we're on. For many reasons, the plinth is going in the ground, but this isn't our ground, this is indigenous ground. We honor the ground and the presence that we have here today on the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territories, lands that nearly every single one of us here is a settler on. They have been custodians of the land for millennia, and we are borrowing the land during our period of transit through life. So we'd like to honor the land and reflect on what it means if you have the capacity to think back a few centuries, what this land may have been like with the owners of the land on it. Today is the unveiling of a plaque to honor Black medical students that were banned, excluded, robbed of their potential in life. Today, we'll have three words resonating all through the event: honor, dignity, and hope. And if all you leave here is with those three words, honor, dignity, and hope, that'll be very well worth it. Although many of us are here physically present, I'm going to do a bit of a black thing and invite some of our departed friends. So in your presence, although you may not see them, are the following: Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Viola Desmond, Robert Nesta Marley, and Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Now, some of you may think, oh, no, I've never heard of Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Not Samuel Taylor Coleridge, but Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Samuel Coleridge Taylor was one of the world's leading Black composer in late 1800s through till 1912. He was a compatriot of Elgar, for those who are into classical music, and died prematurely, but was one of the first people to actually convert slave songs into scored music. You arrived this afternoon to the music of Samuel Coleridge Taylor. You were listening to him without even knowing that this was a man who was a professor of music in his 20s in London, England. Today we'll be talking and demonstrating Black excellence as well, with dignity. Punctuating the day, we will also be having some quotes, because you can't have Martin Luther King here and just sit quietly. It wouldn't work. So we'll start with a few quotes and thread through. We are not makers of history. We're made by history. So it's history that's actually brought us here together. But Maya has a word or two as well. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived. But if faced with courage, need not be lived again. So on behalf of the Commission on Black Medical Students and the wonderful team of people who've worked steadfastly over many years through emotionally challenging times and others that you'll see and hear about today, I'd like to introduce the Principal and Vice Chancellor, sorry, goodness, I nearly got it wrong there. Patrick Dean, who'll give a welcome address and explain what the Plinth means to Queen's University. Why a Plinth? Patrick Dean.
Many thanks, Deji, and good afternoon and welcome to everybody. It's a great pleasure to have you all here for this very, very special ceremony this afternoon. I'd like to, before speaking further, to thank and to welcome Dr. Unveil Daly for joining us, our keynote speaker, but also to other visitors, Dr. Modupe Tunde Bias, President of Black Physicians of Canada, welcome, and Dr. Andrew Thomas, President of Black Physicians of Ontario. So welcome, please. Now, the Queen's Remembers series was started by Principal Wolfe, who's joined us today. And the point of this initiative was to shed light on areas of our history as an institution that have been neglected or that we wish otherwise to ensure that we remember. And today, we focus on one such episode in our history. As you heard from Deji, in 1918, a motion was passed in the Senate of Queen's University to ban black students from the School of Medicine, and this was adopted and remained in place for many, many decades. And the Plinth recalls that history and the individuals who were affected by it. The university officially proscribed black medical students from enrollment in the medical school in 1918, claiming that it was impossible or would be impossible to bring them through their 5th year of clinical training. And although those students were not expelled, those already studying were pressured, indeed faced considerable pressure to leave. They fought collectively against this ban, and some indeed did remain to complete their studies. And despite this hardship, went on to extraordinary careers. Others of them were not able to do this. It must, however, have been extremely difficult for all of them, studying and doing clinical practice rounds within a system within which they were categorically unwelcome. Those who left, some went on to study at other medical schools, but others did not have that opportunity and were not given the support that was promised to them in attaining a transfer. It is difficult to imagine the harm to those individuals, indeed to all of the students affected, caused by the ban. I know the Dean will talk a little later on about the impact on those students of their medical careers. But at a human level, the loss of dreams and aspirations, the despair they must have felt in their unrealized potential at that stage in their lives and careers is unimaginable. I'm going to read the names of the students who were studying at Queen's when the ban was passed. Albion Summerhill Chance, Alvinus Calder, Arthur Cornelius Terry Thompson, Curtis Theophilus Skeet, David Lionel Harriott, Edward Stafford Greaves, Edward Wellesley Rees, Ethelbert Dennison Joseph Bartholomew, Frederick Harvey Alexander, George Phillips Farmer Allen, Hubert Evariste Cicero Césaire, Hugh Gordon Hilvestra Cummins, Noel James Linnington Margetson, Richard Alexander Hutchinson, Oderick Kirkwood Blackett, Charles Augustus Palmer, Frederick Barrington Holder, and Simeon Augustus Hayes. I would note that amongst those names includes the second Premier of Barbados and a number of other highly successful individuals in business and in public life. It is our hope that guests here today and members of the Queen's community in the future will use the Plinth to learn and to remember those failed by the ban and by those who ought to have supported them. History can't be undone, but it's our hope that through education and through thoughtful reflection, that we can, as a university community, continue to work for a future of which we can all be proud. So many people have worked on this project, and I offer sincere thanks to them on behalf of the whole university. A special mention to Mr. Edward Thomas, from whom you will hear shortly, and to Dr. Oyedeji Ayunrinda, our MC today. Mr. Thomas, through his research and his work to have the ban formally repealed, has been rightly and absolutely critical in ensuring our proper understanding of this period of Queen's history. Dr. Ayunrinda, through his work as chair of the Commission on Black Medical Students and his dedication to this event, has worked tirelessly to ensure that we use this knowledge to honor those individuals who were banned and all Black medical students now and in the future. This is an opportunity to make our commitment to honor the dreams and aspirations of past, present, and future generations of Black medical students. I would now like to introduce Dean Jane Philpott from the Faculty of Health Sciences.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Principal Dean, Dr. Daly, and other honored guests. It's a great pleasure to be with you today on this very special occasion. As the principal said, my name is Jane Philpott. I have the privilege of being the Dean of Queen's Health Sciences and the Director of the School of Medicine. We've been waiting a very long time for this day. And so I start by acknowledging the loss and the injustice that occurred in 1918 and the decades that have followed. Specifically, the names of the individuals who were mentioned and their families, how the ban impacted them as they were pressured to leave medical school, some almost at the very end of their studies. The harm that was caused will never be recounted or repaid. It will never be measured. But it changed the lives of those individuals and their families. It destroyed dreams. And in some cases, in many cases, it robbed people of medical careers and suppressed their passions and pursuits. Of course, it not only impacted the lives of those students and their families, it changed the medical school here at Queen's University, and not for the good. In fact, one could argue that the entire medical profession and how it is practiced today, even in our community, was affected by that ban. What won at that time was injustice and health inequity, solidifying and entrenching anti-Black racism into the very systems of education and healthcare in this community and beyond. That had and has devastating effects. We'll never know the full extent of the potential that was lost from those who were shut out of the medical profession and Queens for generations. I'm so thankful that Principal Dean read the names of those individuals to give us time to reflect on those who were enrolled at the time of the ban. But they actually only represent the small number of untold potential physicians and leaders who could have contributed here at Queen's and in society, who could have saved lives and made the world a healthier place. On top of this, to our shame, when Queen's rejected generations of Black medical students, they went on to positions without us. They went on to positions of great prominence, not only in medicine, but some in politics, in business and finance, and they experienced tremendous success, and Queen's was not part of their story. We were impoverished by our actions, by denying them admission to Queen's, and that loss is deeply regrettable. It affected the education and careers of those medical students who were here during those ensuing decades, without those who might have been amongst them. Now, as a result of our understanding of our past, we are trying to change. We have a goal of eliminating systemic institutional racism and discrimination at Queen's University and Queen's Health Sciences. The change is very difficult, and we need to all be committed to it. To be resolved to do this work, to admit our mistakes, to learn from the past, to confront racism every day in all its forms, to change our culture, to change ourselves, to change our world. It's actually taken us more than a century to get to this day and this moment. And I want to thank so many people who have made today possible. I must thank in particular the members and leaders, past and present, of the Commission on Black Medical Students. And I want to particularly note two chairs, Dr. Mala Janeja, who is here with us today, and Dr. Deji Anrinde, for their incredible leadership and vision. I want to acknowledge Dr. Richard Resnick, who's not able to be here today, but who, on behalf of Queen's University, formally apologized in 2019. And I want to acknowledge one more group, and that's the group that gives me the greatest hope. That's our students. And so if I can ask all of the Queen's medical students and the QARM students who are with us today, please stand to give us all hope. This is our future, and it is bright. Today, we have reached the point where we say, we will never go back, we must never repeat the wrongs of our past, and we will continuously and urgently strive to do better. Merci beaucoup, Chimigwech.
Thank you very much, Principal Dean and Dean Philpott. Change will come. It's a song as well. So reminding ourselves, today's ceremony is the past, the present, and the future. Honoring the past, dignity in the present, and hope for the future. And to set the scene, I'll be calling to the podium someone whose work has shifted the dial of knowledge and a whole movement. A part-time PhD student of history and culture who discovered history and culture whilst working his day job as an administrator and teaching fellow in the departments of physics, engineering, and astronomy. There must have been something about this gentleman that made him think of reaching for the stars. Edward Thomas has put his sign on the concrete of time. But quickly, before he usurps me with incredible historical knowledge and experience, what's 1918? What's the year? Well, maybe one of our invisible guests here can mark the year for us. 1918, as Black medical students were packing their bags to leave Kingston, Ontario. In a rural village in South Africa, a baby was born. Nelson Mandela. That's what 1918 is. That baby became one of the world's greatest statesmen, went to jail for over 20 years, became a president, lived till the age of 95. That's what can happen in time. So to set the stage, Edward Thomas.
Thank you, Deji. King and Marley and Mandela all have connections to some of the students in my history, so ask me about that later. But I'm here to say a brief word about making good use of history. So I am a part-time scholar of history and culture at Queen's. My archival research upended a 100-year-old institutional narrative about Blackness and medicine at Queen's, and subsequently influenced the creation of this memorial plinth. I'm deeply interested in the cultural processes by which memories of the past are institutionalized as knowledge, as evidential fragments are particularized, preserved, prioritized, and then reconstituted as a collective narrative. I'm deeply interested in the way such narratives are established as seemingly immutable paths from the past to the present that must ultimately preconfigure our imagined future. I like to approach the journey from memory of the past to imagining of possible futures with two key premises in mind. Premise number one, history is not the past. History is the consideration, and we hope reconsideration of the past. And it is shaped by choices, what stories to tell and which ones to leave out, whose testimony to valorize and whose to discredit, whether to seek simplification or to invite complexity, to accept narrative interpretation or to challenge it. Premise number two, the profound cultural functions of historical construction include the legitimation of collective knowledge of the past, and key to what I want to tell you today, orienting shared expectations of the future. So, when I first considered the institutional history of Black medical education at Queen's, that history had been entirely scaffolded on the assertions of a single 100-year-old memo drafted by a senior university administrator. The hardcover official history constructed from this sparse memory told a story of Black medical training, briefly flourishing here, before being disrupted by the hostility of anonymous outsiders who caused the university to reluctantly oust a handful of likewise anonymous students. The future expectation encoded in this history was that the prospect for Black excellence at Queen's Medicine had been foreclosed a long time ago, and that a substantial body of achievement would therefore have to be initiated starting from scratch, rather than being sustained from some already rich legacy. So that wasn't the first rodeo I'd been to, and it wasn't the first time I'd encountered a performative institutional narrative about Black disenfranchisement that was simultaneously and conspicuously silent on the subject of Black achievement and excellence. Slight inspection, in my experience, often proves such narratives to be weakly constructed. So, nearly 100 years after the story of the 1918 Black medical students had been encoded, I asked myself, who were these unnamed students who Queen's barred from its campus? What was their memory of this past? What sources of testimony and evidence had been left out of this particular historical construction? Well, I found thousands of answers to these questions, and quickly. And as an engineering scientist, that's not usually what I get, is quick answers to questions, but lucky. So I found a cohort of Afro-Caribbeans following a path that had been laid down by earlier generations of Black medical students at Queen's from 1900. I found students who resisted the university's racial discrimination. I found students who rose to the adversity laid upon them and who found ways to shake the world in their own time. I found scores of highly accomplished physicians and surgeons, yes, but also nation builders, barrier breakers, social reformers, legislators, wartime heroes, civil rights activists, spiritual leaders, philanthropists, business founders, artists, athletes, authors, advocates, deeply engaged in pivotal moments in Canadian, Caribbean, and Pan-African history. A small selection of these are referenced in this new plinth, which I and my colleague, Professor Jenna Healy, have taken pains to tell as fulsome a consideration of the past as we can, while highlighting how such knowledge is often and can be confounded by the motivated interests of both individual and institutional power. So, the memory of Queen's past has been expanded by embracing the testimony of past Black students and the discomforting evidence of institutional dishonor and the inspiring evidence of alumni achievement. This historical narrative has likewise been reconstructed and is now summarized on the plinth. What will we do with that? Like any public plaque or statue, this plinth is a date-stamped signpost marking today's consideration of our collective past, today's history, if you will. That consideration all prefigures our imagining of the future of Blackness in Queen's medicine. That is to say, this plinth will do cultural work on those who read it, walk past it, refer to it as a place marker of public space. And this cultural work is not one-sided. You will be an active agent in interpreting its meanings, propagating those interpretations to others, and projecting its lessons onto your own desires and expectations of the future. For myself, I will treat this object as an exhortation to attend to the university's long-term legacies, both as an open door and a locked gate, to consider how my actions today as an administrator here will sit 100 years hence, and to always choose to confront, inspect, and reinvigorate history rather than hide from it or acquiesce to its weaknesses. For Black medical students here today, I will suggest this memorial object can remind you that your excellence, which we will reflect and recognize on today in its present and future versions, does in fact rest on a deep, if uneven, legacy of Black excellence at Queen's Medicine. This plinth at Queen's adds a very late contribution to the public accolades earned by your academic predecessors. These Black medical alumni have long since been memorialized elsewhere as namesakes of hospitals, highways, trophies. Their exploits have already been honored in postage stamps, dramatic works, and history books. From what this institution belatedly finally understands about its own Black past, summarized in this plinth, our future expectation is thus pre-configured to rhyme with the history we now have. We expect a steady rise in achievement and leadership as you learn the arts of healing and harm prevention. We expect your lifelong commitment to mutual support and cooperation as you graduate, circulate, and change the world for the better. And as I'm learning, I expect delight as you exceed even those lofty expectations. We all should expect nothing less. A continuing legacy of excellence, after all, is the established institutional history of the Black alumni of Queen's School of Medicine. That's what you do with this plinth.
Thank you, Edward. One can only wonder what a man so eloquent does with particle physics. Now we move on to a pillar of the past. And in reference to history, again, also acknowledging the presence of Principal Wolfe, a historian as well, who was a co-signatory to the apology in 2019, a visceral moment for those of us there. At the core of many Black cultures is respect for elders, people who've gone the path ahead of you. And for today, we'll acknowledge our elders as well. I hope they don't mind us calling them elders. It's an honor to introduce our next speaker, the second Black medical student to graduate from Queen's after the ban had been lifted, who went on to become an obstetrician and gynecologist for many years. He still stands tall and handsome, and I'll shade quickly away as he moves to the podium. Dr. Unveil Daly, thank you.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Professor Deji, Principal Dean, and Dean Philpott, Professor David Walker, former Dean, and member of Meds 71. Medical students, black medical students, other honored guests of Queen's University. Today, we gather here at Queen's to unveil a plinth that stands as a symbol of progress, reconciliation, and the power of change. I hope that this plinth not only commemorates the incredible journey of black medical students at Queen's, but also serves as a testament to our collective commitment towards creating a more inclusive and equitable future. As we reflect on history, it's important to acknowledge the challenging times that once defined this institution. For nearly 5 decades, for almost 50 years, spanning from 1918 to 1965, Queen's upheld a written policy that denied admission to black students in the field of medicine. This discriminatory policy not only limited opportunities, but also perpetuated systemic racism and injustice. However, in 1965, the winds of change began to blow as the policy was overturned, ushering in a new era of inclusivity and breaking down the barriers that had held back talented individuals based on the color of their skin. As Principal Dean was reading the list of physicians or medical students whose career were interfered by this policy, a shiver went up my spine as I recognized the name of one of them, Dr. Margetson. Dr. Margetson became the most respected physician in the history of the little island that I came from, the island of Montserrat. There was a rumor that I heard somewhere that he had been to Queen's, but I never paid attention to it. But now I know, in fact, that he was a member of this university's medical school. And he became a very well-known doctor, not only in Montserrat, but in most of the Caribbean. And he did marvelous work. So I'm very happy to let you know that the end result in his case was very good. In 1966, a black former teacher, Paul de la Chavotiere, was admitted into medicine at Queen's and graduated as a physician in 1970. I got to know Paul quite well while we were both at Queen's. He returned home to Bermuda to practice medicine and had an illustrious career as a family doctor and a politician. Sadly, Dr. de la Chavotiere died in Bermuda in 2012 at the age of 83 years. I know Paul would have loved to be with us to witness this unveiling today. I was admitted after Paul, the year after Paul, in 1967, and I graduated in 1971. And I stand before you today for what it's worth as a living testament to that change that I spoke about. I'm the oldest living black medical graduate of Queen's University. My journey here was not always without its challenges. But let me hasten to say that I happened to choose the best possible class, the class of 71, to be with, because without exception, my classmates were welcoming, and this was a competitive class, but it was a welcoming class, and there was absolutely no hint of discrimination. There was no discomfort from my classmates. My journey represents the indomitable spirit that has driven generations of black students to overcome adversity and excel in their pursuits. This plinth does more than just recognize the past. It stands as a beacon of hope for future generations, reminding us that education should be a universal right, devoid of discrimination. It is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, perseverance and dedication can bring about monumental change. The steps we take today echo through time, offering a brighter path for those who follow. I sincerely hope that the unveiling of this plinth marks a significant milestone in Queen's University's ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I call on the administration of Queen's University today to put in place meaningful policies that will demonstrate this commitment. This is a moment to acknowledge the past, but also to celebrate the present and to look forward to a future where all students, regardless of their race and background, have an equal chance to pursue their dreams and make meaningful contributions to society. Let this plinth, therefore, serve as a lasting reminder that education is a powerful tool that can dismantle even the most entrenched prejudice. May it inspire us to continue the journey towards a world where opportunities are truly boundless and potential knows no boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. I'm inspired by my Yoruba Nigerian heritage to be way more respectful. So I'm going to code switch to my culture. It's moments like this that create quotes, memorable quotes, and a quote for today: the steps we take today will echo through time. Thank you, Dr. Daly. Now, may I now ask the Principal Dean Philpott, Dr. Daly, medical student Mudia, and Raquel to advance towards the plinth, please. This is the moment you all came for. You may notice the plinth is wrapped in tartan. It's not a traditional African fabric. The tartan honors the Scottish legacy of Queen's University. What a moment. As we take this in, phone cameras poised, we thank those who studiously generated the wording of the plinth: Edward Thomas, Jenna Healy, Mala, and a group of others who painstakingly worked on this. What a moment. My day job, I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm trained to be in touch with my emotions, so I'll be open. I'm covered in goosebumps. That was deeply special. And what's it about leadership? Here comes Martin Luther King again. There comes a time when one must take a position that's neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he, she, they must take it because conscience tells them it is right. And we thank leaders here who've made difficult decisions, those who will be making decisions in the future, those reviewing their positions, and we hope every single person here shifts that little bit more in the dial. So we move on to the next bit, and again, what's it about black culture? Dance, music, but dance and music in black culture isn't to entertain. It's in the soul of blackness. And you notice that when you go to churches. So in some churches, the hymns are sung and the statues stand there at the end of the hymn, whilst in other places, it's soul and rhythm, and that's what it is. So we're going to invite, to help us transition now, Nomsa Mngoma and Joanne, Kanita, Yoli, Julianne, to take us through a transition. Now, this is a tune you've probably heard many times before. However, many of you may not be isiZulu speakers. Nomsa is a PhD Queen's alum, 2007, clinician scientist, physiotherapist, dance instructor, and a choreographer. This tune, Jerusalema. It's symbolic and internationally embraced song embodying the values of Ubuntu. I am because we are. With a chorus, save me, don't leave me here. And our lesson from this song and from history and our humanity is no one gets excluded or left behind. A number of you may be very familiar and have been invited to join in if you know the song and have got the rhythm in your legs. Does anyone know it? Does anyone have rhythm in their legs? Here we go, Raquel, thank you. Oh, all right. Kingston rocks. Woo! Wow. And there I could see Edward Thomas making the calculations, particle physics. You've got leadership, Agnes Etherington, nursing, psychiatry, students, law. That was wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That must have been a first. Now, Dr. Daly, you said you had fun in your time. Did you hear? It was nothing like that. So, as we move on, Viola Desmond has just sent a message. You may have heard of her not, but if you've got a $10 note in your pocket, that's vertical, that's got a beautiful black lady on it, that's Viola. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good that overwhelm the world. So as we move on in the program, we're going to hear from the present. So we've done the past, transition to the middle third. The present are the medical students. We are here for their futures and the futures of students to come after them. Our current medical students and a few alumni will speak. And the first student I'll call, and Dr. Daly will love this, if you want to see a dashing young man from the 60s in pictures as Escalopian Society, there's going to be one black dude in each of those pictures. Really dapper. And when I told Dr. Daly that the current president of the Escalopian Society was a black woman, I take my cue. Grace Ayo.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace. I'm a current second-year medical student here at Queen's University. It's wonderful to see you all here today. It's wonderful to just be in such an amazing presence. So many Black excellence, so many individuals who embody Black excellence today. So let's just take a moment to just take it all in for right now. It's so wonderful to join you all here on this momentous occasion, on this, I thought it was going to be a beautiful day, but I'll take the clouds and the wind as well. But more importantly, to take time to remember the wrongdoings of the past that have extended even through generations and generations and generations, while striving to rectify these actions going forward. We remember all the Black students who have been named that were enrolled between 1917 and 1918. And symbolically, we also recognize the Black students not named today, but that were denied the opportunity to study at Queen's because of racism, whether that be in the form of overtly racist policies, discriminatory practices, or covertly systemic hidden racism. And today is an important day, yes. But today also symbolizes a fork in the road that we've reached as an institution. Today we can either acknowledge and pledge never to repeat the past, or allow our actions to show that it's not something we consider a big deal, and to sweep under the rug and continue as status quo. Today is important, yes, but what matters more than what we do here today is what happens every day going forward. What matters more is the incremental, deliberate actions that Queen's, and I include myself in that as well, take to advocate for Black learners, Black patients, and to dismantle systemic barriers that affect Black learners and patients. Now, there's a saying in Swahili And you gotta bear with me because my Swahili is very rudimentary, as my mom will tell you. It's very junior. But I'm gonna teach it to you today, okay? The saying goes, and I'll say it slowly, the saying goes, maji hayatokoti yakishushwa kwa moto. Okay? So I'll teach it to you now. So just repeat after me. Maji hayatokoti yakishushwa kwa moto. Do you know what that means? Okay. What it means, it literally translates to water does not boil when it's taken away from the fire. Not literally, but you know what I mean. You know, no languages translate the way you expect them to, but that's what it means. And we know that there's been a lot in the media in the past few, probably in the past few years, even dating back to when I was an undergraduate student here, when I was starting, kind of way back in 2000. Not way back, but 2016 was not way back. In 2016, when I was starting, there was a lot about how Queen's treats its Black learners. And even now, Queen's reputation is very tightly intertwined with systemic exclusion of Black students. And I would be remiss to say that nothing has been done since then and no steps have been taken, right? That wouldn't be completely accurate. The class of 2027 is here today. That's a first-year cohort of QARM students since the program has been dedicated to Black and Indigenous students. There have been public apologies and pledges made by the School of Medicine, and now we have this absolutely beautiful plinth. But now is not the time to take the water away from the fire. Now isn't the time to sit back with our hands folded and say, okay, we've done enough. And it's not the time to appease our collective conscience with the knowledge that there are a few more Black students now than there were last year and the year before. Today is a springboard and an opportunity to use this momentum to continue to dismantle these barriers. And I hope today marks not only the end, but the beginning of an era marked with a commitment to refuse to be complacent in the face of anti-Black racism, continuously denouncing and working against anti-Black racism. I hope today marks the beginning of an era where work to repeal racist ideas and policies, be they written or unwritten, spoken or unspoken, is not driven by public outrage and shame, but rather is driven by an understanding of the importance of this work, both for Black learners, for Black patients, and for our medical community as a whole. And I'm hopeful that today marks the beginning of an era for Queens, one that is marked by radical action towards making Queens a nurturing environment for Black learners. And I look forward to a time where Queen's University is world-renowned for Black excellence and a leader in championing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. If only you saw Dr. Daly's face. I saw pride. Pride, pride, pride. That's our society. Go, girl. Thank you so much, Grace. But you may think we've run out of presidents, but no. Inviting the next president, the class president of the year 2025, Sabra Salim.
I think they're just making roles for us to fill at this point. So if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Sabra Salim, and I am a third-year medical student here now at Queen's. I actually followed Principal Dean all the way from McMaster, so I'm very happy to be here today and to be in a room of just excellence, to say the least. I know that word has been thrown around, but that's sort of what I wanted to talk about today. So when I, of course, as I mentioned, look across this audience and to my Black peers and colleagues, I'm always amazed at how extraordinary each and every one of us is. I'm filled with pride to be a part of a community that is notorious for excellence in every single thing that we do. It's amazing. But frankly, I'm kind of tired of being extraordinary. I really am. To be Black in the medical world and to be Black in our world today is to have to be excellent. Not for our talents or our interests or our hobbies, but out of sheer necessity. When I think along of the history of the community of Black learners I belong to, I see healers, yes, but I also see intellects. I see athletes, advocates, politicians, musicians. I see so much. The list is never ending. But to be seen, to be recognized, to be acknowledged, to be heard, we must do and be exceptional. Dr. Hugh Gordon H. Cummins of Meds 1919 was a co-founder of the Barbados Labour Party after he was kicked out. Dr. Courtney Laguerre set up an independent surgery in his home and became a publisher of the British Atlantic. John Wiseman Eve was an excellent violinist, a Berkeley Institute grad. Dr. Oyodeji Ayorinde, psychiatrist, community advocate, MBA, MSc, medical director, researcher, educator. Corey Fletcher, lawyer, musician, York U top 30 under 30. Mudia Iai, researcher, mentor, BMSA president, editor. Grace Ayo, researcher, AS president, singer, community advocate. Raquel Alexin, athlete, military officer, dancer. Alex Taylor, ex-CFL athlete, multi-talented musician. Hibo Rajal, community advocate, mentor, researcher. The list of Black folk here might be short, but their accomplishments are so long. They're infinite. And while our excellence is somewhat celebrated as we look forward to the future, there's a lot that hasn't been recognized. We've had to push past social, economic, financial, institutional barriers that are hardly seen. And despite the fact that we've been beat down so many times, we stand up the same amount of times and one more. We rise and we push, but we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to be extraordinary to be celebrated. We shouldn't have to work twice as hard to be valued. We shouldn't have to be remarkable to be seen for our worth. Excellence at this point has become about survival, something to prove, to push our way into spaces that have historically and have continued to shut us out. So when we look to Black exceptionalism, our extraordinary really is remarkable. We have advanced, we have succeeded despite insurmountable odds. But no longer should we continue to obsess over Black exceptionalism. We don't need to justify our worth. That for us to be treated with dignity and respect, we must prove ourselves to deserve humanity. But we are just like everybody else. We are human. We are tired. We become unmotivated. We can't be resilient, bone-breaking, hardworking forever. We aren't invincible. We carry the burden of excellence. So when I look to our allies and when I look to the audience, I urge you to see our pain, see our struggle, see our fatigue, but even more, I hope that you see our ordinary is quite extraordinary. So thank you very much.
So as we invite the next president to speak, Mudia Iyayi, president of the Black Medical Students Association, we sneak in another quote from Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King ushers you in, Mudia. Imagine everyone here came on different ships, and as the quote goes, we may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. We're all under this tent. We're in the same boat, in the same space. Mudia.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know how I can go after Sabra and Grace, but I'll do my best. So my name is Mudia. I'm currently in my second year in medicine here at Queen's, and I'm the current president of the BMSA, so the Black Medical Students Association. I was asked to give a statement on behalf of the BMSA here at Queen's, and it'll be easy to say that we are just a club that was founded in 2020 that aims to increase the representation of Black medical students in Canada. But I think that would fail to encompass the immense history and magnitude that Black medical students have and continue to have at Queen's and in the Canadian medical field. So to me, BMSAs, or more broadly, Black student associations, serve as mosaics of different identities, backgrounds, and cultures, united by something that society has termed Blackness. My personal experience with BSAs goes back to my undergraduate degree at Western University, where I joined the Western BSA in my first year. I grew up in a GTA, specifically Toronto and Brampton, and I went to a pretty diverse high school. So coming to Western and being in a minority was a huge culture shock to me. However, it was the BSA at Western that helped create a safe space for me throughout those 4 years, and honestly supported me throughout my academics. So it's the networks and connections that I made in my peers, mentors, and alumni. Those connections were lifelong. So I bring up my experience at Western to speak on the importance of our BMSA here at Queens, not to bring up some rivalry between Western and Queens. So whether it is our involvement in advocacy or it's just student well-being, the importance that this BMSA has had in my life personally, and I'm sure the life of all our Black medical learners, is tremendous. This impact can be seen when looking at our Black History Month ceremony in February, which Raquel and Alex took a hold of, or the various social media campaigns that we had to highlight the Black contributions to the field of medicine, whether locally or nationally. So the BMSA here at Queens cultivates a safe space for Black medical students while also allowing our learning and education for our colleagues who are not in the Black community. It is my hope that the leaders at Queens and the Faculty of Health Sciences continue to uphold their promises to their Black learners and continue to foster a supportive and safe environment for them. This vast network that we call the BMSA would not be possible without the contributions of its past members and founders. I would like to thank Akila Ankibade, Sabrina Lawal, and Iku Nwosu for founding this BMSA. Yeah. And for passing the torch on to me and allowing me to stand here to proudly represent its members. I would also like to personally thank Deji, who's a clap for Deji, just one time still. Yeah. Who's been such a strong support and mentor for all of us all. And thank you to all the organizers and leaders for putting this event together. And finally, on behalf of the BMSA, I would also like to thank the Black Queens medical students of the past for fighting the battles you did and allowing myself and my colleagues to have a fruitful and great medical education. Yeah. Popping everywhere. And finally, I hope that the Queens BMSA will always stand as a living testament to the promises this institution has made to its Black medical students, both past, present, and prospective. I'm so proud to call myself a BMSA member, and I hope our numbers will only continue to grow in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Mudia. If medicine offers you a side gig, maybe you can be a sort of voiceover announcer. Right, so we heard 30 under 30. And who was that? A Black medical student who happens to have studied law, was a human rights intern in United Nations in Geneva, then just as a side gig comes here to study medicine. Corey Fletcher.
I just wanted to take a minute. I am to tears just to look out in the audience and see so many Black faces and so many supporters. So thank you. So my name is Corey Fletcher, and this afternoon I have the honor and privilege of addressing this audience as a proud second-year medical student at Queens. I say honor and privilege because it was not so long ago that students in my position were told that we don't belong. We're told that collectively, Black individuals don't deserve or belong in medicine. And this just wasn't a fleeting thought, but it was some theory that was backed by an institution. Today, however, I confidently and proudly stand on the shoulders of those who struggled before me and represent my ancestors' wildest dreams. Not only am I a Black student studying medicine, but I'm an executive member of the national organization that represents all Black medical students, the Black Medical Students Association of Canada. The BMSAC exists to unite all Black medical students across the country, and as an institution, we try to ensure equity and appropriate education that supports all Black learners and learners in general. We proudly recognize Queen's renewed commitment to support its Black students and the Faculty of Health Sciences' dedication to ensuring equal access to medical education. We note that Queen's has made impressive strides to never repeat the actions of the past, and we look forward to the future where Queen's leads the country in the number of matriculating Black students and is the premier school for Black medical excellence. In honor of those who came before me, and I look to you, Dr. Daly, I want to end with 3 salient points. The first point is the most important. This is for every Black student in the audience, every Black learner, and every student to be. You belong here. You will always belong here, and there's nothing you can do that will take away from the fact that you deserve the spot you're in. Additionally, I want to look to Sabra and Raquel as 2 examples of the most senior Black students we have who just started clerkship. You both belong in the hospitals and are going to make lasting changes. The second point is that though we as a Black community may face stumbling blocks, we will always excel and we will always achieve excellence. The last point is for faculty at Queen's. It's also for the leaders who sit in the seats today and call yourself allies. We look at you guys today, not with hate, not with disdain, but with a willingness to see how you will be a part of making this future bright. History has shown what can be accomplished when a policy is backed by an institution and its leaders. Now is your chance to rewrite history and to make the future brighter than I can only imagine. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Corey. I thought you were going to end by saying, I rest my case. I'm going to be very naughty here. And I've mentioned a number of leaders, and as we expect the next person to weave his way up here, to also recognize that those who aren't presidents still are leaders in the country. Raquel, I hate to do this to you, but Raquel's an officer of the Canadian Armed Forces. And, you know, thank you. Thank you for your service to the nation. Thank you for your pledge to medicine as well. We owe you a lot of debt. Thank you, Raquel. So what do newly minted grads of Queen's Med School look like? It wasn't that long ago that a particular medical student, the very first on the list of medical students, was in a graduation picture, pointed at the camera with poise and pose. So a recent alum, Dr. Aquila, not Aquila to you guys, Dr. Aquila Akingbade, radiation oncology resident, Western. Aquila.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harunde. My name is Aquila Akingbade, and as Dr. Harunde said, I am a recent alum of Queen's Medicine, class of 2022. I'm also one of the founding member of the Black Medical Student Association here at Queen's. And also a second-year resident, radiation oncology resident at Western University. And it's just amazing to see all this Black, beautiful and handsome Black faces here. Thank you for having me here. So I remember being a fresh first-year medical student Excited to begin my medical career, a long-held aspiration of mine. I had viewed my new environment with rose-colored glasses, and you could imagine my surprise upon hearing about the Black medical student ban, which was imposed under the aegis of the Queen's University Senate at the time. Now, as someone who has faced my fair share of discrimination and prejudice, again, due to something entirely out of my control and immutable, my skin color and race, I could only imagine what those students enrolled at the time felt as their entire lives were appended based on the work and writing of someone who wasn't even a physician or an educator, Abraham Flexner, author of the infamous Flexner Report. I took off my rose-colored glasses, and I did not miss the fact that I was the only Black male in the entirety of Queen's Medicine at the time, and up until my graduation in 2022. I also did not miss the fact that there were no Black students in the class of 2023 and 2024. I didn't miss the fact that the already meager Black faculty continued to dwindle as the university struggled with retention or attracting talented Black faculty members who take their talents elsewhere where they're appreciated. I did not miss the fact that, or the irony of no Black medical student being admitted after the creation of the $10,000 bursary for incoming Black medical students for both the class of 2023 and 2024. I asked myself if Queen's University truly cared about the Black experience here at Queen's. But then came the revamping of the QAMS program, and I'm very happy to hear that the first graduates are now in Queen's Medicine, as well as I was very happy to hear about the end of the 2-year drought it was broken with the admission of multiple Black medical students. The ranks of residents and faculty here at Queen's University have also swelled since my graduation, which is very good to hear. And it seems that the ball has been set in motion. I really hope Queen's University is able to keep this momentum going, which has been started with the valiant effort of my peers, so Iku and Sabrina, who cannot make it here today, Dr. Ayanride, the Dean's office, the Principal's office, and the work of the Dean's Actions Table on EDI, which I was grateful to be part of. As everyone knows, alumni and staff are most likely to engage when they feel appreciated and a part of a community. The unveiling of this plinth here today, several years in the making, is an important memento as Queen's acknowledges the impact of its institutionalized racism. But just as important, it could represent a watershed moment in history with the development of better relationships between the university and its Black students, its Black staff and faculty, and the Black Kingston community at large. And I hope that this is just the beginning of a long list of steps taking in developing those relationships that I previously spoke about. Thank you very much for inviting me to just give my 2 cents.
Thanks, Aquila. Aquila was quite an audacious student. And I remember him during one of our mentorship chats saying, they called me Dr. A, that I hope you know, Dr. A, you're not going to be the only Dr. A for a long time to come. I'm after you. And I can see it's happening quickly. I'll like to read very quickly a message sent by someone, an alum that many of you know and may have grown very fond of, who wasn't able to make it here today, Dr. Shakira Brathwaite. Shakira was one of the founding members of the Commission for Black Medical Students, and she was so inspired not by the dermatology curriculum at Queen's, which presented mainly white skin, that she decided actually she's going to commit her career to becoming a dermatologist and serve communities where there were opportunities to do so. So I'll read her notes sent. Apologies, she's on call and had difficulty shifting it. Today is a truly momentous occasion. When I started at Queen's School of Medicine in 2017, I remember feeling exceptionally aware of my presence as the only black medical student in my class. I also remember looking at the students just ahead of my year and the numerous class photos displayed on the walls of the new medical building. Searching for faces like mine and, disappointingly, struggling to identify them. I remember being told that this was not atypical for a community like that of Queens, and that this was mostly a reflection of the local population of Kingston. In my second year, the work of PhD scholar, Dr. Edward Thomas, revealed that much of what had been told to me had not been true. In fact, Queens had been unique in helping educate black physicians from the British West Indies until the 1910 Flexner Report. This report served, there's a naughty fly. If all fails, I'll eat it. So this report served as the impetus for a formal ban on black learners in 1918, resulting in an admissions ban from 23 to 65, and not formally rescinded. Information we're aware of now. In my time on the commission, I had expressed a desire to use this opportunity, not only for formal apologies, but also to honor black excellence in the past, present, and future. In addition to formal scholarship support, co-curricular teaching, and mentorship programming, I emphasized the importance of having some sort of formal display honoring the memory of black medical students that were banned from Queens to be located in a highly visible, there's several now. It's just the one? Okay. Focus. Co-curricular, I emphasize the importance of having some sort of formal display honoring the memory of black medical students that were banned from Queens to be located in a highly visible area of the grounds used for medical teaching. The intent was to make the broader community aware of the ban and its downstream effects, but also to help those who look like us find something to help them know they belong in spite of the past events and lack of visible presence. I'm beyond thrilled that this plan has now come to fruition. Thank you to the many hands and voices that made this event possible. I'm terribly sorry I was unable to make it in person for the laying of the plinth today, but I look forward to continuing progress towards a brighter, just, and equitable future. Shakira Brathwaite, MD, MSc, class of 2021. Shakira was also a multiple award winner and a Hall of Famer, and the lonely only in her year. So moving on with the program, we're now going to invite some members of the community. That community, that black community that when people leave their classrooms, lecture theaters, work in Kingston, go back to. And I call on Auntie Judith. Auntie Judith Brown and Chaka Chikodzi. And if we have any other members of the black community of Kingston who aren't in health sciences who wish to join. Now, it just happens to be, and Dr. Daly and Auntie Judy may not know, they were both students at Queen's in 1969.
I just found that out today. I thought I was the only black one around at that time.
Yeah, so Judith is widely considered a black community elder, graduating from Queen's Arts in 1969. She has an international career spanning Canada, the US, China, and Egypt. She's received multiple community awards for service, including the Jim Bennett Award for advancing ethnic and racial inclusion. Chaka, not the Zulu, Chaka's from Zimbabwe. Chaka is a sculptor of Zimbabwean origin whose exquisite work can be found in a number of private collections, including the Agnes Etherington. And they would like to present to the principal, with members of the black community of Kingston, a sculpture. This sculpture, titled Honor, Dignity, and Hope, featuring the past, the present, and the future. This artwork invites us to reflect on the interconnectedness of our humanity and our duty to future generations. If we can invite the principal to the podium with us to receive the gift. Do you want to come?
Oops. This come down a bit. Thank you. Well, Dr. DJ, before we make the presentation, Auntie Judy always has words to say. And I'd like to share with you, when I first saw the picture of the plinth, what it meant to me. Thinking of the theme of today's celebration, I thought, honoring the past. And I thought, as we look at that, we honor those past students who were not at that time admitted into Queens. It also reminds me of our ancestor, Robert Sutherland, who made it possible for us to still have this university here. Indeed, honoring the past. And for the present, I think of the present students, the Black medical students who have entered in 2023. And I'm very proud to say that among them, I have 2 great nephews. So I'm really, really thrilled. And you know, when I looked at the second part of the theme, it's dignity in the present. Well, I know what it is to act in a dignified manner, but that word I wasn't too sure, so I went to the dictionary. And it said, dignity is the right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake and to be treated ethically. I thought, right on. And not only do we want to ensure that our Black medical students are treated with dignity, but we in turn must treat each other with dignity. And then we move on to the future. And I've heard lots of talk today from different speakers mentioning how the future is looking bright and things will go on. You know, we will stay in Kingston. We will look for those future students. I've been here since I graduated in 1969. And I have certainly seen changes, and we are open for more changes. Now, one other thing I would like to say, as I looked at the plinth, you know, when we look at art, we give it our own interpretation. And now I don't know if I dare speak like this with so many medical people around, but when I looked at the plinth, it reminded me of an embryo in utero. And I thought to myself, that's what we want for our Black medical students. As we look at that, an embryo in utero to me reminds me of a warmth, of a protection, of things to come, great things to come. And all of that to me is embodied in this plinth. I think, Chaka, you outdid yourself when you did that. So what a beautiful, beautiful work. And also, I've heard many things about how the leaders of the university have a part to play. Well, I have been on university council for the last term, for 4 years. And as I listen to the present principal, Principal Dean, I can assure you, with the words and actions that he has shared with us, I think he is the right man for the job to get us to go on. And I was really pleased when I heard that he has been appointed as principal and vice chancellor for another term. So wonderful to hear. And so, Principal Dean, on behalf of the Black community, I present you with these plinths. I thought there was one, but Chaka tells me there are 3. I see 2. Where is the 3rd? Okay, so there you go.
Thank you very much.
You know, another feature I thought was great. I looked at it and I thought, whoa, it's Black and for the Black medical students. But the sculptor reminded me it's green.
Well, every community needs leaders and elders, and Auntie Judith, a teacher forever. Thank you so much for your words, your inspiration, and for being our leader in the community. This is a very precious gift from the Black community of Kingston. I understand the request is that that statue finds a home in the medical school in a prominent place. And Chaka, perhaps you want to show them the hands that made the work. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now there's a quote for that. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. Martin Luther King. This guy went for it. Now we're moving on to a really interesting moment. I'd like to introduce Mr. Ryan Lewis. Ryan is a full-time music professional who has more than 30 years' experience in the music industry. He specializes in voice and vocal development. He's a prolific songwriter, producer, arranger, composer, has helped develop some of the musical talent in Kingston, and has a music studio. And one of my most amazing moments in Kingston was a day, an evening, several of us spent time in the studio jamming. So we're really privileged to listen to Ryan, and Ryan has dedicated a song from one of his albums, Shine, to this occasion. Ryan Lewis.
Feel extremely underdressed. In my defense, I came straight from work. So anyway, Dr. A, faculty, esteemed guests, all in attendance, thank you so much for having me here today. I see a few familiar faces in the audience, and my performance is probably going to shock you. Usually I'm a singer, but today I'm doing something a little different. In light of the occasion, which is so fabulous, another big round of applause for that thing over there. That's awesome. So I have a little bit of light humor. I'm not a comedian, so if you don't laugh, it's not going to hurt my feelings. So moved to Kingston probably about 15 years ago, and I was walking down the street, Princess Street, with my wife, who happens to be Caucasian. And I say that for a reason. You'll get what I'm saying after. Anyway, we passed a family, and she grips my arm, and she shakes my arm. Look, honey, a black family. And obviously these people can hear her, and I am so embarrassed. But she was genuinely so happy because around that time there was hardly any black people in Kingston. And I think of that, and I think of this occasion, and I think this is so monumental. For anyone that think this is myopic, it is not. This is awesome to be sitting in this room and experiencing what's happening here today. I'll say one more thing. The darkness that plagues this world today is obvious and it's ubiquitous. I come with a simple message, not to mitigate it by not to be mitigated by politics, religion, or status. It's a message documented in an excerpt from the most published authorship in the history of the world. And it goes like this: let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify God in heaven. And my song is simply titled, Shine. Okay, come on, clap your hands. Shine. Yeah. To blame. to make it all right. No matter who's bringing up there, I'm here to let you know things could be worse. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it all right. I might be old, but I'm gonna die young. Now the Tupac or Biggie, not known to be smooth like Jay-Z, but more than comfortable being me. I'm saved by grace, and it'll take my place. Humble, but my cards are laid on the table. Petey party is over. No more civilian, I'm a Buffalo soldier. Not a rapper, more like a concrete cover. Commemorative member armor, projectile ready. Pull the trigger, watch me as I pulverize my enemy. Not by my strength, but the power that's inside of me. Hostile intentions and darkness surrounding me. Yo, I gotta suit up before this darkness gets inside of me. Darkness and light will always fight, but I'm standing on the side of the light. Pick a side and get ready to fight. Which side would you be on by the end of the night? Just shine, no matter what they send your way. Whether or not you to blame. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. Just shine, no matter who's taking over. Take a look around you, things could be worse. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. Illuminati getting kind of calmer. Like global warming just getting warmer. Now why is the body of Christ getting colder? Can't even distinguish the salt from the sugar. I need religion, I can lead a bullet to the head, believe that. I said it once and I'm gonna say it again. All they do is constipating, separating, causing confusion. I wish that we could be one love. The Father paid the price, that's the least we could do. Pick a side and get ready to fight. Will you eliminate religion or contribute to division? Just shine. Shine, no matter what is in your way. Hey. Whether or not you're to blame. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. Just shine, no matter who's taking up. I'm here to let you know things could be worse. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. I might be gold, but I die young. Yo, I ain't trying to bore you with a sad song, believe me. I know it's telling you, but I'm still young. Listen. That's probably why God made me headstrong. He made me musical so I can be his instrument. No second guessing, I know it's a definite blessing. Oh Lord, I thank you for it. Not my will, your will be done. Trust. I tried it my way and my way sucks. Believe, I will appeal to your senses. Christ is the real deal, no sugarcoating. Roll like butter, I drip in G-O-D forever. Remember this? Darkness and light will always fight. I'm standing on the side of the light. Now pick a side and get ready to fight. Which side would you be on by the end of the night? Just shine, no matter what you send your way. Oh, whether or not you're to blame. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. Just shine, no matter who's taking up dirt. Things could be worse. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. Just shine, no matter what they say. Stand face to the sun, eyes fixed on the one who's gonna make it alright. I gotta let you know it could be worse. So introducing my two kids, my twin boys, at 3 years old. Zechariah and Malachi. There you go. They helped me out. Thank you guys. Have a good evening.
Mr. Ryan Lewis. Now, this community has amazing talents. When I met Ryan, I said, I'd like to create a Beats library for kids with mental health issues, so they could spit their rhymes and so on. And Ryan produced the most amazing Beats library for mental health. And he's been a great supporter of youth mental health in the community, quietly doing his business in an amazing way. Thank you so much, and may the students and the present shine. Now we transition to the future. And another president. So we're honored to have in our presence the president of the Black Physicians of Canada, Dr. Modukpe Tunde Bias, an obstetrician in Toronto, and another president, the president of Black Physicians of Ontario, Dr. Andrew Thomas, family physician with Lakeridge. The presidents shall speak.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I know that you are all shining and shining. Wow. It gives me a great privilege to be here in the presence of the Vice Chancellor, Dean Philpott, and all the distinguished guests today. I don't know about you, but I am overwhelmed to be here today, almost over 100-year history to be made. And it's just the beginning of even greater things to come. Like Dr. Ayorinde said, my name is Modupe Tunde Bias. I'm the president of Black Physicians of Canada. And during the day, I deliver babies. And I'm an associate professor of OBGYN at University of Toronto. Witnessing a 100-year history when at that time, Blackness was denied everything, including the opportunity to learn. I bet this was not the plan that Robert Sutherland had, the Black man who bequested his estate to save Queen's University at that time. We have heard how color ban denied the medical students of their future, and one of the reasons for underrepresentation of Black physicians till this moment. In addition to that, Black physicians undergo attrition, which is estimated at 20%. What does that mean? This is the data from United States, but it's not too different from Canada. When Black learners start their journey, at the end of their journey, they would have lost almost 20% of them through discrimination and systemic racism. The past is behind us, but not forgotten. It's ours to fix the wrong for a better today and a best tomorrow. We must openly condemn discrimination and anti-Black racism in medicine. Racism is a health crisis and has no place in medicine. Black Physicians of Canada was founded in 2020 after the death of George Floyd. He was almost like the Messiah. And this organization was founded by 2 Black residents who are the future of our profession based on the things that they have also witnessed and gone through. Our mission is to unite, support, and empower Canadian Black physicians and physicians in training like those in the audience, while strengthening the leadership roles and amplifying the Black voices and experiences within the Canadian health system. We do have core values. One of them is community building, which is why we're here today. The other is also about advocacy, then mentorship and education. When we carried out a national survey, 3 of 4 Black residents do not have formal mentorship program. It was because of that BPC developed the first national race concordant mentorship program to support Black physicians and trainees. So, 100 years ago, such program did not exist. Dr. Bailey would attest to that. In our inaugural year in 2021, we were able to match 62 mentors with 62 mentees. And this program has had a positive impact, improved self-confidence in career development, provided guidance and resources to mitigate the experience of discrimination. Race concordant mentorship is very useful, and we still have more room at the inn for any trainees that wants to join. However, sponsorship from our allies is also part of the future, and I want to emphasize that we do need our allies to sponsor Black trainees and physicians. The color ban has given Queens a negative image about the legacy of racism. And I want to appeal to you, Dean, and also Dean Philpott. This is your opportunity to rewrite history, and I know you would. BPC is holding its first inaugural conference from October 12 to 15 in Toronto this year. The theme for the conference is I Am Because You Are, celebrating Being Black in Medicine. The aim of this event is to address the unique challenges and opportunities faced by Black learners and physicians across Canada. It would also provide a platform for learning, networking, sponsorship, and mentorship again. I'm using this opportunity to request institutional support to sponsor and facilitate the attendance of your medical students and trainees to be present. Your support will create the future leaders of tomorrow, which is the reason why we're here. We are the future, and may this Plinth remind us that we must race together as one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Deji, thank you very much, and to everyone who's brought this day together. I went to Howard University for medical school, and so this was my experience every day, being surrounded by Black excellence, faculty, students, the patients we served, and our broader community. So I finished in 2017, and I will truly say this is one of the closest days I felt to being back on the grounds of Howard. So this certainly is a special occasion. I do want to tell you guys a little bit about the Black Physicians Association of Ontario, that I am the president for that organization. If I can, I'll tell a little story, because I think my experience, I think, really encapsulates a lot of what our members get from the BPAO. So I did my undergrad at the University of Toronto, and actually before I knew I wanted to be a physician, my landlord actually at the time said, "You have to come to this conference. There's free food." Of course, sure, I will be there. I now later come to realize that this, back in probably 2008 or so, was the BPAO's annual conference, that this upcoming year will be on February 24th. My landlord, she is and was still an active member of the Black Physicians Association of Ontario. She, through my time, she was not a family friend. She was just a kind physician who really cared about my path. She paid me money, although I was her tenant, to do odd jobs around the place, which didn't deserve to be paid for. And then ultimately, she told me that you should go to Howard University to study medicine, and it actually happened. And then I'm proud now, in making my way back from the States, I was supported by so many different BPAO members along the way, whether it was reviewing my application, doing some mock interviews, and then was able to do my family medicine here at Queen's, and then now being the president of the BPAO. So it really speaks to the fact that BPAO is community. And I'm excited for the students. If you didn't know about us, now you know, and we're looking forward to doing lots of fun things for you guys down the road. I just wanted to comment on, just to make a couple of reflections based on today. Grace, I know you said now's not the time to take the pot from the fire, and there is something I do want to speak about in terms of, Edward, what you had mentioned as well. What do we now do with this Plinth? So I am proudly also course director for the Queen's expansion in Lakeridge. If you guys are familiar, now they're medical students who are going to become family doctors based out of Lakeridge, Oshawa. And I'm very proud to be a course director for one of the courses they take. And I'm very proud of these students, the path they've gotten there, and I know they'll do great things. However, I would also be remiss without mentioning that there are no Black or Indigenous students in this cohort of 20. I mention this because this program sits in Durham. I talk about, so Ajax is actually the blackest place in Canada, which sits squarely in Durham. More than 16% of residents in Ajax are Black. And we know how the GTA is evolving and the diversity is evolving, especially in Durham region. And it really speaks to the importance of continuing to move forward with this momentum to make sure that we have a diverse group of students in Durham. With that, I'll just leave to say that it's been a pleasure to speak with you guys, and I know that there's a lot of good things to come forward from this program and from Queen's going forward. And we look forward to having you all at our conference February 24th in Toronto, but also to become part of the BPA or join us along our journey. Thank you.
Right, so I'd like to call to the podium Dean Philpott to receive a plaque from the Black Physicians of Canada and the Black Physicians of Ontario. This beautiful plaque has memorialized the names of every single one of those students that the Vice Principal read out earlier. And perhaps you'll say to yourself, well, you said to me you would love to have this on the wall of the medical school, on those walls that have pictures without names. So you can say it, but thank you. So what we've heard encoded in some things we've heard is, yes, today's a nice day, but we will hold you accountable. And accountable, we will hold you. Moving on in the program, because we're now in the future, and as we transition towards the end of the program, we have something special, because another musician decided to dedicate a song to today. This musician is a resident in Sakatri, Omar Hamor. And Omar is accompanied by a new attending physician. He just joined us this month in September, Dr. Ryan Brooks, internal medicine, from Kingston to Toronto to Kingston. Omar and Hamor, over to you. And they're performing To the Future, a song that Omar wrote and dedicating today. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Deji, for that beautiful intro. I actually met Deji about a month ago in the classroom, and then I've known him more in the studio, though, ironically. And I met Ryan in that same studio session, so and it's amazing how we're all here today after so soon after meeting for the first time. And thanks, Ryan, for joining me. This is To the Future.
some better days. I know there'll be some better days. We'll find some better days. We'll find some better days.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the face of psychiatry in the future. And Ryan, welcome to Kingston. Ryan joined rehearsals 2 days before starting officially, and he's been at it. You've always been a Kingstonian. Welcome home. I heard a rumble, and it wasn't thunder, it was hungry tummies. And what we're going to do as we transition out of the program, many, many thanks to the Black community of Kingston. There have been amazing door prizes, generosity galore. There's a website, you'll see who the donors are. The numbers are going to be called. We've had book donations, spa donations, music studio time, photography time, dance classes, galore, galore, galore. And thank you, thank you. I never knew that when we would approach the Black community of Kingston, they would rally and own the space. But Chaka got really inspired. I won't say Chaka Khan because I'll change his name. But Chaka couldn't help himself, and he said, no, Dr. Deji, we need to make another sculpture. I'm going to make another one. There's another one. That Dr. Daly deserves something. So Chaka, stand up. Chaka made a miniature of the community gift to Queens for Dr. Daly to take home. And Auntie Judith gave it the most fit-in interpretation for an obstetrician and gynecologist, and embryonic. If you're wondering who the beautiful, sprightly lady is, that's Mrs. Daly, a retired judge. But Chaka wasn't done. Chaka wasn't done. He said, no, that Edward Thomas guy, he deserves something. He deserves something. Infinity. Particle physics and history to infinity. Edward, the community is so proud of you, and I hope that symbol of infinity, traversing the past, present, into the future, lives on for many years to come. Thank you. So we've come to the end of the more formal part of today. Thank you so much. People have traveled here from Saskatchewan, London, Ontario, Brampton, and many other places. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bancroft, and so on. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Thank you for being a family. We all came here in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. There are numbers for door prizes on your little packs. You've got memento cards as well. They've got very powerful messages. And there's a final quote, which I probably won't get verbatim, but I've lost my sheets, is, in some situations, it's not what people say, it's not what they do, but how they make you feel. And I hope today, if you can leave today feeling what it is to have Black love, what it is to be a member of a Black community, what Black pride is about, you've witnessed dignity in Blackness, and yet we have so much more work to do. These smiling faces have teeth, and with teeth come the bite of accountability. And they sure will keep you accountable. So thank you so much. We thank all the donors, prize givers. There's a website with amazing material on it as well. Reception begins. Thank you, thank you, thank you.